great to be back doing videos today. I've been doing videos all day and we're getting towards the end of the day and this is one of my last videos. So I have kind of an interesting topic. Well, maybe that's not the word. I should say a perplexing topic. And it has to do with alcoholic blackouts in the context of sexual assault allegations. So first of all, let's define alcoholic blackouts. And I've dealt with this over the years in many different sexual assault trials because it's a very common theme, alcoholic blackouts. So how can I define an alcoholic blackout? Well, look at it this way. Let's pretend you're at a bar and you're drinking heavily. You've been drinking all day. And it comes to about 11 o'clock at night. And that's the last thing you remember. You wake up in the morning in your hotel room or your house and you say, my God, how did I get home? I can't remember what happened from 11 on. Now, that's called alcoholic blackout, brought on by alcohol. And let's assume that you talk to your friends and they say, yeah, Mike, I was speaking to you from 11 till 1 and you seemed fine. I mean, you were slurring your words slightly and you seemed a little bit drunk, but you weren't that bad. Really? Yeah, you were still talking sense and whatnot and you seem fine that way. That's a real possibility. That happens all the time. I mean, the other scenario is where the person's completely out of it, incapacitated, right? But I'm talking about a person who's actually capable of consenting in that alcoholic blackout state, not remembering it, and then waking up the next morning and saying, I don't remember a damn thing. Okay. So this is a fairly common scenario in sexual assault allegations where you have a woman, say, who was drinking heavily and can't remember after a certain point, but the next morning finds that she's been sexually assaulted in some fashion. Let's say she sees semen somewhere. She goes, oh my God. Goes and gets tested and they find the DNA and they locate the man. Obviously they had sex. So the issue is whether it was consensual or not consensual. Well, in many cases, obviously it wasn't consensual, but in some cases it was. I mean, you can, in this situation, not remember that you had consented. So that's called alcoholic blackout. So what happens then is the woman will come to court and she's allowed to testify in this fashion. She's allowed to say, look, I never would have had sex with that man. I didn't know him very well. I met him in the bar. There's no way. You're allowed to say that. And that goes a long way with judges, there's no question, and legitimately so. Now, let's pretend or let's assume the man is able to say, and he comes across as credible, that they did have consensual sex and he withstands cross-examination. So an accused in that situation would probably have a pretty good chance of winning. I mean, I've won that type of case before, there's no question. Now, the woman maintained that she never would have had sex with the person. She had an alcoholic blackout. And let's face it, I mean, as a premise, alcohol does lower inhibition. So someone saying I never would have sex, well, maybe that statement should be read with a grain of salt. Let me give you another situation. I've defended cases where both people had alcoholic blackouts. Now, I can tell you that under Canadian law becomes a very difficult case to win because the accused cannot truthfully say whether he had sex or not. He knows he did because his DNA proved it. The accused could say as well, I never would have sex with that woman, but alcohol lowers inhibitions, doesn't it? And they could have. And judges tend to convict in that situation. In the first situation, it's potentially a case you could win. In the second situation, it's going to become very difficult. And let's face it, in both situations, it's very possible. Believe me, this happens all the time where women get sexually assaulted in that type of situation. But there's also the possibility, and we'd have to concede, let's agree to agree, that alcohol lowers inhibition. Sometimes people have alcoholic blackouts and do things that they normally wouldn't do and can't remember. Now, I was speaking to a friend and he was surprised, that in a situation where both can't remember that there'd be a conviction. I said, that's the state of Canadian law right now. I'm not being critical of it. Neither can remember, and judges will tend to convict if the woman can truthfully say, I typically would not, there's no way I would have had sex with that man. I wasn't interested in him. So there you have it. Those are two common scenarios. I've defended both types of cases, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. And the case law in Canada favors that the first situation, if your client can come across well, he's going to tend to win. In the second situation, no. And maybe, the bottom line is alcohol is a dangerous thing. mixing sex with alcohol is not to be advised, and it creates a lot of problems. And I'm going to be doing a series of videos about alcohol, consent, complications from alcohol with consent. This is going to be interesting in my next video session in a couple months, and stay tuned for that. You'll be interested in that. These are very complicated legal issues, and I try to give examples to bring them down to the nuts and bolts of it, rather than sit here with legal jargon and cite a bunch of cases that take me 20 hours to understand before I go to trial, let alone, pontificating to you guys about the complications of consent and alcohol and all these sort of things. So anyway, thanks for joining me today. It's been a very good long day, and I'm getting tired, but I always enjoy doing these legal videos for you to educate you guys and the public, and it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for watching our video. We are absolutely committed to bringing you the best possible criminal and DUI educational videos. If you found this video helpful, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you've been charged with a criminal offense in Ontario and require our services, please click on the link in the description below.